We made this.
Everybody's gonna podcast today, podcast today, podcast today. Everybody's gonna podcast today, podcast today. Da 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 da. Hi, I'm Matt, and that was me attempting to sing, and I promise you, I will not try that again, because I technically do want you to listen to the rest of that, so maybe starting with an attempt at singing lyrics that actually don't fit the original meter of the song I'm trying to sing and do a parody of doesn't work. Hi, I'm Matt Latham, you're listening to Pick a Disc. This is the podcast where someone picks a disc to talk about for whatever reason they want to. And today I'm glad to bring on Matt from the SP10 Podcast to talk about Mika's debut album, Life in Cartoon Motion. And as usual, we talk about all sorts of things, about the songs, about the album, as we want to do, and, you know, just generally other stuff around it and everything, including talking about the TikTok challenge, which I do not do. The first time that I attempted this, I made it sound like I was going to do the TikTok challenge, and it was me apologising for misleading you. And yeah, no, honestly, I am not lying. I definitely do not attempt the TikTok challenge. We talk about it, but trust me, you're safe from me attempting to sing. Trust me. All my SoundCloud is hidden. Trust me. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I'm talking to Matt about Mika, but before then, let's just go through the usuals, the socials. You know, follow us on Pick a Disc on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. There's the Pick a Discord, which is a Discord server and the link to the invite is in the show notes for this episode. So if you want to join the community and just talk about what kind of stuff you've been listening to, or just random things about music, feel free to just pop on in and just say hello. I'd love to hear from you, even if you've got negative things. No, don't come and say that negative things, because it'll all be negative. If you want to lie and say good things about it, come on in and say you like the podcast, and just mask my insecurities about it. But anyway, if anywhere does the kind of things where you can review podcasts, review it. Remember, opinion fraud, 5 stars, etc, etc. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. I'm conscious of the time I'm spent rambling in this introduction, so I'm going to go and press play on this interview where I talk to Matt. Okay, so just before we begin, I think I'll give you a very your public health announcement, in that you're probably going to get too much of me in the near future, because you're going to have your overdose of Matt, I think, because not only is Matt from SP10 going to be on here, I'm going to be on the SP10 podcast in about a week or so. So,
you are indeed.
Yes.
Lucky man. Matt's everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Considering in my class friendship group, we have about 3 Matthews. I'm referred to as Latham, and yeah, and like at least two of us are referred to by our surnames, and we refer to the other one as Big Matt, because there's just too many of us. But then again,
I know.
Then again, now Big Matt spells his with 1 T, so he's one of those weird people. So
that's a rogue choice. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, what was quite funny, we keep mentioning that, and on his wedding, neither me or the other friend noticed that on the placeholders where he tells you where you're sitting, he spelt our names with 1 T. We didn't notice.
If he ever gets remarried, don't turn up to that one.
It's never trust a Matthew with 1 T, I think.
Yeah,
but yes,
they say.
Yeah, fellow Matt with 2 T's from the SP10 Podcast. You're here to talk. We're not going to hear talk about the intricacies of the etymology of our first names.
We're not.
No. We're here to talk about someone else and an album, which is the genesis of this podcast, isn't it, when you think about it?
It is.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, you've been quite excited to talk about this, and like telling me
I have. Yes. Yeah, I mean, on my podcast a lot, I always talk about, this is one of my favourite albums. But I think this one genuinely is one of my favourite albums. So I'm very excited to be able to talk about some of it.
Okay, so, and as per my own ceremony that I see, I've noticed that I keep using this phrase, and I'm going to try and I'm going to say it for today, but then I'm going to make an active choice to try and find a thesaurus, because I've noticed every time I say this phrase. But without beating around the bush, Matt, please tell the lovely listeners the disc that you've picked.
We are going to be talking about Life in Cartoon Motion by Mika.
Yes, Life in Cartoon Motion by Mika was released on the 5th of February in 2007. on the Casablanca/IRG label, and the producer was Greg Wells, a name that I think has popped up a couple of times in this. And if you've not heard the name, you would definitely have known the music, and probably briefly touch about him a bit later on. But so Mika's Life in Cartoon Motion. I think, why have you picked this album?
So often, I mean, I get asked all the time, what is the best album? What's your favourite album and things? And there's so many cool choices you can choose. And to be honest, like, my taste of music is quite indie rock, alternative rock, that sort of vibe, pop punk. I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
However, for some bizarre reason, Mika just holds this place in my heart. And this album, I think, is one of, if not the best pop album recorded ever. There's so many bangers on this album, and when you actually think and listen to it, you're like, oh, hang on, this is another banger, and another one, it just never ends. And I think for me, it's just joy in 40 minutes of joy, and that's why I want to talk about it.
I want to talk about 40 minutes of joy. That's the reason.
Yes.
So can you remember the first time you discovered Mika, or when you first heard of him?
I mean, when probably, how was I? I was 12 when this came out.
Oh,
I don't want to start bragging about age here. I was 12 when this came out. So I think for me, this was the first time where you sort of get that secondary school age. You start really discovering music for yourself rather than just listening to what's on the radio. You start finding music. And this, I remember Grace Kelly came out, and it was number one for like 5 weeks, I believe it was, in the UK.
Yeah.
And that was everywhere. I remember it being all over. At any time you turn on the radio, it's just there. And I think it's just such an earworm. And from there on, I discovered more and more songs. And yeah, I just got completely hooked by Mika. I just thought he was such a cool guy. And that was it for me.
Okay. And I'm assuming this was the first album of Mika.
Yeah, it was his debut album. Yeah, it's the first one I'd ever heard of.
Okay, so it's 12. And
yes.
I was 22 at the time this came out, because I think we worked out that there's about 10 years difference. So
yeah, when we recorded, that's what we decided, wasn't it?
And then quite interesting, and particularly I think as well from what we've seen through what we've been posting on our Instagram accounts and stuff as well. We've got very similar. Yeah, there's similar music tastes we've got, and
for sure, yeah, definitely.
But that's like got a decade in between.
Yeah.
What I found quite interesting, and this is probably linked to kind of my kind of quote unquote history with Mika as well, is that around about 2007 was, I think, just before, I think, early 20s. I my kind of teen years were kind of like a mixture of all sorts of different things and stuff, and I never really found like a music like scene until, and it'd probably be until a bit. It's probably about a year. Yeah, it'd still be about a year before I suddenly find, quote unquote, the band that would basically give me an identity in music. So I was still kind of drifting like through different things. I think I was pretty much in the a Scandinavian indie synth indies.
We've all been there, man. Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah, indie synth. So I was listening to bands like The Sounds and Briskeby and Sahara Hot Nights and all that kind of stuff. So pretty much anything from Sweden or Finland or Norway, I was like really into. And I think at that point as well, I was trying to think of this before, thinking like, okay, so what was I listening to in 2007? And realising that I think I was still listening to like The Killers, I was listening to like all the kind of indie stuff. And I think that New Year's Eve on 2006, my uncle just gave me a CD and said, listen to this, I can't believe you never listened to these before. And it was the best of the Smiths. So pretty much, and this was pretty much before Morrissey had gone full on.
Gone
bonkers.
Full Morrissey.
Before Morrissey became a verb. And then pretty much a good chunk of the first few months of 2007, I was just discovering the Smiths, and pretty much turned me into some kind of, I don't know, music wanker or something, where like I was like, where like I wasn't really listening to much else or like anything that was on the charts and stuff. So when Mika came out, I was kind of, for my sins, like brushing my phone, like, oh god, this really annoying song, because I think
100%.
Yeah.
And I think if I was older, I would have had the exact same response. to it. I think I'm quite glad I met him at that time.
I think if I was pretty much your age, I probably would have gotten into it a bit more, because I think when I look back at when I was 12, I was 12 a bit younger, I was still kind of into like the kind of like pop music stuff. I'm in the podcast Naughty's Naughty. He's still in the first which is where they're going through the pop hits of the noughties. They're still in the first quarter and stuff, and they're still proper pop bangers that I remember getting into and stuff. But then you get to the later ends and you get into the 20s, and as someone who's very much you've been closer to the early 20s than I have recently. Any male music fan in their early 20s thinks they know it all, and we don't.
100%.
We really don't.
100%.
Yeah, we really don't. And like, I was kind of like, it's obviously written off Mika quite quickly.
Yeah.
Quite quickly, and at that point, and I really disliked Grace Kelly at the time, and coming to this album, like, I think very recently, I think I say mellow, but basically grown up. I kind of appreciate Grace Kelly for what it is like a kind of catchy song. And when you mentioned this album, I was like, okay, it's that. Oh, okay, it's going to be one of these albums with like the one hit in it that I'm going to recognise with a bunch of other song stuff. And there's been quite a few albums on the podcast that have been, when we've talked about it, there's been one song I've been familiar with, and I'm like, okay, and then I'm listening through it, and I'm like, I know a lot more of these songs than I realised.
Yeah. Every Mika song is on this album, is what I say. Like, there's no other singles he had really that did anywhere near what this album did.
And I was listening to it, I'm like, why do I remember this song? And it was, and then I'm suddenly having vivid flashbacks of Lollipop being played on Radio 1. Happy Ending. I know that song for some reason, and realised that a friend of mine back in the day, like, play that song constantly, and those song lyrics were pretty much on their MySpace page for ages.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure
the classic statuses
actually,
you put up. Yeah,
actually, I think Grace Kelly was a lot of people's MySpace song as well, which is one of the reasons that I couldn't escape the bloody thing. But then, like, but then like songs that I'd forgotten existed for like 13, 15 years. Big Girls Beautiful and Love Today as well. I was like, and I was like, how many songs of these do I bloody know? And it's one of those weird things where I think, particularly in that time, it's easy to forget how much in the public consciousness Mika was.
Yeah.
And so when I came to this, I was like, okay, I'm really surprised that I know this. I know quite a few of these songs and stuff. So, before we get going to the album as a whole, generally, for those who don't know who Mika is, Mika,
where have you been?
Yeah, Mika,
where have you been?
Mika is the stage name for Michael Holbrook Pennyman Jr. He's a Lebanese-born British singer-songwriter. He had the number one predicted breakthrough act of 2007 in an annual BBC poll of music critics in the sound of 2007, and then he recorded his first full-length album, which we're talking about today, on Island Records in 2007, which sold more than 5.6 million copies worldwide, and he helped him win a Brit Award for the British Breakthrough Act, and as well as a Grammy nomination. And he topped the UK singles chart with Grace Kelly, as I said, and he's gone to release about 4 more albums, and he's also been on The Voice and the television of X Factor. And he also starred in his own television variety show in Italy, which I'm not going to pronounce because I'm going to butcher the
but, play it safe, Matt. Play it safe.
But that talent show, that variety show, won the Rose d'Or Award for Entertainment in 2017.
Didn't know that.
But so in terms of the album itself, it's kind of like a kind of pop mix of a lot of different influences, which it gets quite referential. I'm going to ask you first though. In terms of so you say you're 12 years old and you was 12 years old. You said you was 12 years old when you first heard this. What was your music taste at that age?
I mean, it was just, I think at that age, it's just anything you can get your hands on, you just listen to. I remember this is still the time when HMV were doing their 2 for £10 CD deals, and I'd go once a month and buy as many CDs as I can get with my pocket money and just bring them back. And this is a CD I owned. It's one of the first ones that I properly, like I say, chose off my own back. But I think my music taste at that point, I started learning to play guitar, all of those things. It was just pop, a bit of acoustic-y stuff, some indie rock, I remember when I look back at this sort of years, 2006 to about 2008, 2009, everything just seemed to be like sunny, happy music. I think of She Moves In With Her Own Way by the Kooks, all of that sort of stuff is starting to come out, and it's sunny, happy, and that's that sort of music I was really digging around that sort of time. But I think it's when I started to really hone in on the fact that actually I don't like this super cool things. I know we just said about that. I was not at that point by then. I was just anything I'll listen to, and I think I've still got that taste now. I'll happily put on anything and give it a good listen. But I think I don't know. It does say music snobbery, but my kind of
insular things had kind of faded at that point. But it's quite interesting to see. So at what point did you think that you moved on from kind of anything to the more indie rock side of things? Do you think this my question being is that do you think this was instrumental in moving you into a certain direction in your music taste? Or?
Do you know what? I don't think I really truly appreciated this album until quite a few years later. I think I first listened to it and I was like, yeah, this is good. I like it. It's quite poppy. It's not till probably I'd say probably leaving university is when I really re-listened to this album, because I was like, I really like, we'll go into it a bit more detail I'm sure later on, Big Girls You Are Beautiful, I think is just it's just a disgustingly poppy, fun song, and I love it, and I thought, I was just going to re-listen to Mika, and this album, as I say, it's just so good, and I was like, I just didn't really appreciate it back then, and that's when I really started to love it. I don't think it had that much of an influence on me before. I think I just thought, Grace Kelly's a good song. I'll listen to this. This will be fun. There's some nice pop. Lovely. But now I think I really start to enjoy it as an album. You know what I mean? I think these last few years.
So at what point did you start to class it as one of your favourites? Was it?
I would say probably the first lockdown. I remember I went on this mad music phase. This is when I started to dream up about the SP10 podcast and things. I just went through and I just tried to rank anything I've listened to. I was like, I'm going to put these in an order, a bit like what you've said with your top tier and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
I sort of did this in my head and I was like, pop albums, let's go for that next. And this one was right up there straight away. So I'd say around that first lockdown, I really thought, yes, this is one of my best.
Oh, okay, so using the Latham method, would you class these as top tier?
Yes, I would class this as top tier.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So this is like a all-time favourite. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've been for a while. I've been embarrassed to say it because that whole music snobbery thing. I think, well, I've got a music podcast. I've got an Instagram where I review albums daily. You can't put Mika as one of your top 10, surely. But actually, fuck it, I'm gonna do it because I love this album.
I think particularly as the last couple of years, I think I've found myself venturing back towards a much more of a pop sound that I'm pretty sure that I would probably almost not look down on, but wouldn't just give time of day or just like think.
I think people do look down on pop though. I think they just think, oh, that's just easy listening. It's in the charts. It's mainstream. Sod it. But the reason it's mainstream and it's popular is because it's popular.
Yeah.
That's pop music.
Pop,
you know,
like, popular. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, but yeah, no, I think that's quite interesting. And is this like an outlier? An outlier from your other favourites? Is this more poppy than other favourites?
I think this one doesn't match the rest of the 10. I think it's a bit of an anomaly up there. But I think you can see influences for some of my other choices. Like I think this album, although it is just pure pop, there is a lot of different genres that are blended in. So I think, you know, there's quite a lot of funk throughout this album, which with some of the tasty little bass lines in there. And I think bass lines are sort of one of my key things for top music. And being in a band that never had a bass player for about 2 years because we could never find one, I think that's made me think, actually, I like bass. It's really important to me. So maybe that was a key thing, but I think when it does stand out compared to the others if you look at my list.
I can as soon as you said the word bass, suddenly the dun 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 from Love Today suddenly starts kicking in my head and stuff. Like I can see the bass and stuff. And I think one of the things I think with this as what I found with the album as well is that it's quite, as you said, it's got crosses so many different genres and stuff. And I think the initial not backlash, but I think some of the criticisms towards it, perhaps from some of the people who disliked it, was that. Particularly perhaps from the indie aspect of stuff, it's like, it's the people who don't really listen to indie that much finding, this is an indie album, where people listen to indie going, this is an indie album, this is pop album, or people listening to going like, this feels like it's a funk album, or this feels like it's got aspects of classic rock in it and stuff, and like, so it's one that doesn't have a kind of singular genre identity. I think you class it as kind of pop, but I've always maintained that pop's usually a suffix for another genre. It's not really.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. So it is it is. I think almost indie pop. I think it is kind of indie pop.
Yeah, indie pop. I think that's a good way to define it. Yeah. If Mika's not using that at the moment, definitely write that one down.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's definitely got a kind of an indie pop vibe to it. But not indie pop in terms of the kind of Sarah Record style indie pop, more like pop, like kind of popular music with indie thing vibes on it. But then there's also
I think the instrumentation's quite indie, isn't it? Maybe that's where the crossover is. You got a lot of like a guitar, the bass, keys, that sort of stuff. Whereas there's no like synthesizer-y pop like you might think it of. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I think if a lot of times if you. And I think there's a lot of comparisons to particularly with Mika's voice to Freddie Mercury, and there's a lot of Queen in this, but as well.
Yeah.
But if you kind of tone down a lot of the distortion of Queen, 100%. I think it's a lot cleaner version. By cleaner, I mean the guitar tone. It's like a cleaner version of cleaner sound than like Queen as well.
Yeah.
So you've got that kind of almost rock elements to it that you don't, but without that heavy distorted guitars, you don't really realise you're listening to rock.
Yeah,
and it's an interesting mix, I think, as well.
Yeah. I think it's a good crossover for people.
Yeah.
If they want to go from that pop to rock sort of sound, it's probably like a good little stepping stone, like a dip your toes sort of vibe, Like, it's probably a good way. Or if you want to go the opposite way, you want to go back to the pop sound, maybe it's a good way to go there as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably a way of saying it. It's like a crossover where perhaps it might have taken people who perhaps weren't into that indie sound, perhaps moving towards the kind of the more indie-esque sounds of stuff that's coming in, like the Kooks and stuff that's coming in later that year, so they can have that kind of sound kick in and stuff. But there's but in terms of the songs itself, Mika's official site uses the term funk rock, and in terms of that, as well as kind of focusing on the storytelling aspects of this. And there's kind of like an interesting mix of kind of what could be autobiographical and kind of storytelling aspects as well, which I found quite interesting to look into. So
I love the way some of them, I don't like the lyrics on this album. Some of them are so first person, and then some of them are just like you say, that storytelling. Like Billy Brown, for example, that's the most like third person kind of lyric you could ever create. But it feels like there's essence of truth in them still. Do you know what I mean? Like I think the way he's written it is really clever.
Yeah.
And the way that he can wed those songs together, despite some of them being first person, some of them being third person, they still fit. It doesn't feel like it's completely jagged.
Yeah.
I think it's just really clever.
Yeah. And I think quite a few of the songs themselves, I feel like some of it feels like it's very 2007, but some of it there's stuff that I've listened to which like that's been released this year and the previous year that sound like similar to this.
Yeah, 100%.
Or like,
100%.
or you can see a bunch of, or at least you can kind of see the kind of genesis, like inadvertent genesis of like kind of this sound mixed in kind of indie stuff. I mean, because he's headlining Dot to Dot for the first time a couple of days ago. I started listening to Alfie Templeman, who's got Alfie Templeman.
I really love Alfie.
I've only listened to a couple of songs
really
of that, but there's like, but I can when I started listening to it, I can kind of see that kind of like indie kind of.
Yeah, it's I think the falsetto vocals as well really sort of match up, don't they? And it's a similar. I say the word vibe far too much, but I think you do get the vibe that is quite similar, quite poppy, quite upbeat. That bass line again. Yeah, I could see. I've never really thought about that. That's a good resemblance.
Yeah, and actually. I think, and the other one, I'm not listening to the second album yet. His second album, but Declan McKenna, particularly the first album.
Yeah,
particularly his first album. I could feel a lot of when I was into this Declan McKenna in kind of Mika as well, and I was like, okay, so it's kind of like and I'm not sure, I can't remember the terminology. It's kind of like the antithesis of the swaggering kind of indie lead style, like where you had like your stroke, where you had the Strokes or the Hives or your Baby Shambles and stuff, where it's kind of like drink like either the impression that they've got like a bottle of alcohol just off
the impression that they don't really care that they're there, sort of.
Yeah,
I'm the too cool for this. Whereas Mika was not that at all. Yeah,
so it's like the antithesis stuff, and there's quite a lot of kind of like that kind of music genealogy that can be passed down to kind of like the kind of that era, this new era of kind of like male vocalists that are coming out as well. But yeah, I was quite surprised at that aspect as well. And interestingly, again, part of this of his website, there's it's like press releasey, so it's very much kind of advertising. But he talks about growing up listening from everything from Joan Baez to Dylan, well, from Bob Dylan to Serge Gainsbourg, who I've never listened to. But that's the second time that Serge Gainsbourg's been picked up on this podcast, and I've still not listened to him.
I can't say I've heard him either. No.
The quality he's got continues. My musical tastes have become more eclectic as I got older, but I'm always going back to great art singer-songwriters, people who make great records to their own vision. Prince, Harry Nilsson, Elton John, even Michael Jackson. These people make amazing pop records that couldn't be performed by anybody else, and that's what I wanted to do. And so the Prince and the Elton John. The Elton John
one is the one out of those four that really rings true, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the piano, I think. It's the piano aspect.
Quite possibly.
The piano pop bit as well, so
definitely.
Yeah, and the kind of like showmanship as well.
The whole thing, I think this album should be a stage show. That's the other thing I think when I listen to this. I don't know if anyone's looking to make a new musical, but I think this is definitely the album to use. I think it's stage show. It is just that. I don't know if you think the same, but yeah, it just feels so like grand and big, and chuck it on a stage, get people dancing around, acting it out. I think that's what it's designed for.
Yeah, I can see that, because I think you can see that, and particularly when you got.
I think that links to the storyteller lyrics as well.
Yeah,
like, they do tell stories. I don't know how on earth you can make one out of all of the songs together, but there's some really cool little things you could put in. I think. I mean, people have managed to do better with worse, I think, but yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
no, I think, yeah, but the kind of grand theatrical aspect of. There's that grand theatrical aspect of the thing to them as well. So I think what we'll do, I think we'll move on to talking about the songs. Which songs jump out to you when you think of this album?
Oh, see, this is hard because I think there's so many. I think, like I said straight away, the first one that really hooked me in, and that number one single for Mika was Grace Kelly. And I think it's obviously the first track on the album. It really does set the tone for the album, I think. And for me, that was probably the one that brought it in to me. Now that I listen to it, I don't think it's anywhere near my favourite on the record. But like I say, it was my sort of journey into the album. I just think it really does summarise how fun this record is, and it just shows off everything that he's doing across there, whether it's the happy piano, whether it's the falsetto vocal, the storyteller lyrics, like it's all chucked in there. And I think it's a really solid opening track and sets the tone, personally. And you're looking at me like, actually, I don't like this song anymore.
No, actually, I'm kind of gearing up a couple of things off camera. Like I can see kind of like, oh, he's not looking at me in the camera. I'm actually gearing a couple of things ready to bring up about this song. It's one of those that kind of grew on me. I mean, at the time, it's just one of those songs that I really began to kind of get really annoyed by. And
I think any song that's been number one for 5 weeks is going to piss people off after a while. It's everywhere, wasn't it? And this song was everywhere. So I can imagine it really grates.
I don't think you were. Were you born during the Bryan Adams and the Wet, Wet, Wet 16 week?
No, not really. Well, if I was not old enough to remember it.
Lucky you. Lucky you. But no, I think I listen to this, it's kind of like brings back, and like it's one of those songs where like, okay, I remember all the words to this. And as well, and when I watched the video, I suddenly remembered that I remember so many things about that video, particularly kind of the interplay between him and the little girl that does the I think it might be Grace Kelly that he's sampling at the start. I'm not too sure about the sound vocals. I think,
possibly.
But I think, but it turns out it's because it's the daughter of the director. I think that the client who's the girl in the video.
Oh, okay.
But so I remember kind of that, and the annoyingly catchy chorus. An annoyingly catchy chorus, which has spun off.
I think that's a theme throughout the album.
Yeah,
annoyingly catchy
choruses. Yeah, I think that might have been the working title for it. But the but the song itself, I think, has also ended up being, and I ended up watching far too much YouTube videos of compilations of the TikTok challenge where basically it's one of those overdone things where to this day I've got no idea how people do it. I don't know whether they've got loop pedals or something where they basically just sing like different layers.
Yeah.
Different layers. So it's like I can be brown.
They were so good though, those TikToks. Some of them were incredible. Some of them not so much, but some of them are amazing. The different layers you can add to it.
Did you ever go?
No, I mean, I could probably do the first couple, and then we're struggling. You know, definitely struggling.
But then I was thinking, no, because then I'm gonna try and do it. So so I tried to do it, and then I got to the point where I'm like,
this is it.
Okay,
exactly.
I'm gonna do. I'm gonna open Audacity and try it. And then I think I got to like the fourth one where you have to kind of raise an octave, and I'm like, and I turned into going like, I can be, and then. Yeah, and it felt like I was 13 and my voice broke again. I was like, no, I can't do that.
My favourite TikTok version of it was there was one guy that purposely messed it up, but the loop kept going.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's incredible. I'll see if I can find it. When this gets released, I'll play it on our socials. It's so good.
It's one of the more annoying trends of YouTube is when something goes viral and the YouTube comments are, I'm here because of so-and-so, I'm here because of so-and-so, I'm here. And then you got people saying, anyone here who's not from that? And basically, Ryan Reynolds was constantly being referred to. And Ryan Reynolds has a version.
I've not seen that one.
Right, okay. So I'm just going to quickly send you this in the chat.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Acceptance. Oh, I love it. I'm sad that I missed that before. That's so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So, basically, something I've never done on the podcast, just got someone to do some homework live on the podcast. So,
great.
if you're wondering why there's a sudden drum and stuff, there's the, so a lot of people were talking about the Ryan Reynolds TikTok about Grace Kelly, and I think that had a massive surge.
Yeah.
Of people watching it again and stuff. And so those of you who haven't watched it, pause the podcast, go and check it out.
Please do. Don't just not do this. Do. It's so good.
Yeah. This is your last warning. This is your last warning. This is your very, very last warning. Right. If you've not watched it and we spoil the surprise, it's your own fault. Where basically, so it's basically Ryan Reynolds is only capable of doing a very low register, and then suddenly Will Ferrell, who's got a very high and surprisingly in tune voice.
I was going to say it sounds like it should be terrible. I was quite impressed by that. You know, I'd listen to that. Yeah,
but it's really kind of fun little TikTok that kind of accumulates into kind of like a nice little funny 47 seconds of joy, more or less.
Essences of Anchorman, really.
Yes, yeah. But then it suddenly got a lot of people back into watching the YouTube video, which does eventually mean it's full of kind of different, like different people saying like, oh, I'm here because I knew before bloody Ryan Reynolds and stuff, and like, so it's got, but that song's got that kind of, that chorus is very catchy, and it's got that kind of very high beat, which I think people attempt to do and knacker their voices. So when this is played out, because I think 2006, 2007 was pretty much, I'd started going to kind of like clubs and stuff, and like clubs and going out drinking and stuff, and it was a lot of times it was kind of like a mixture of like, it was either kind of really dodgy modern dance stuff, which I wasn't particularly a fan of, or then you go to the cheesy pop room, and Grace Kelly was one of those songs that would play on the thing, which sober me still maintained that I didn't like it at the time. 1 or 2 or 6 drinks later, had a bit more of a tolerance for it, but it's one of those things where you got a bunch of people going, I'm not going to even bother trying to sing the high.
Yeah, interestingly, that really links to one of these other songs.
Right.
So, I mean, for me, I think my favourite track on this album, I mentioned it before, is Big Girl, You Are Beautiful. And like you, when I went to uni, we had, in our student union, we had like a cheese room is what we used to call it. And it was just the ultimate cheesy hits. So, you know, like, I Wish I Was a Punk Rocker. Like all of those, like just classic cheese. Aqua, Barbie Girl, all of them were being blasted around. And Big Girl, You Are Beautiful was always on towards the end of a night. And you've just got people doing all the different parts and trying to hit the high notes, and even sober me would be trying to take that on, but drunk Matt trying to hit those. Oh, it's just phenomenal. So much goodness in that song.
Yeah,
I think.
guys. Oh man, alcohol and trying to knacker your vocal cords.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
That's the dream combination, really, isn't it? It's what we all strive for.
Yeah, and before quickly, because we'll move on to Big Girls You Beautiful in a second.
Yeah.
But I want to bring the one thing that has always stuck with me is that the impressionist Rory Bremner, he had a show on Channel 4 around the same time, and there's a kind of skit. I won't. It's about like 3 minutes, so I won't send it you. But if you wanna, I won't send it now. But it's a spoof of the Grace Kelly video, but it's Rory Bremner singing as Gordon Brown. And it's like, I want to talk to you. Last time we talked, Mr. Brown, you reduced me to tears. And it's basically stuff like, do I attract you? Do I repulse you with my queasy smile?
I think I've heard this, actually. I think I might have seen it, but yeah. That's...
Am I too scary? Are you too wary? Do I fill you with bile? I could be wholesome. I could be loathsome because I'm a little... But it's like, I could be brown. I could be blue, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I thought the bit I remember, I tried to go on the telly, but my looks were too bad. Now I act like Machiavelli. I'm essentially mad. And that's always stuck in my head. So like, I want to be on the telly. And and I just thought... And so I saw the Rory Bremner thing referenced in the Wikipedia, and I'm like, oh, I need to remember that. And I've not seen that for years, but that kind of, that I want to be on the telly has always kind of like stuck in the back of my head.
It clearly shows you how much of a versatile sort of like, it's obviously been quite a big song. The fact that it's relived on TikTok now, you know, people were spoofing it, like, it did well, this song. And I know I did a bit of research before it came out. 250 million streams on Spotify currently. That's not bad going, really.
Wow.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think, actually saying that, I think appearances is like The Hills, Ugly Betty, Coca-Cola in Turkey, and his Israeli adverts, the trailer for Panache, Chuck and Larry. Yeah. The Doctor Who novel, The Pirate Loop. He was in there, Sarah Jane. He was been in an episode of Big Brother. A German first season trailer for Weeds.
That's what we all strive for, isn't it?
Sorry, and the last appearance bullet point for this song is FC Barcelona's official video for Thierry Henry in Barca Legends series.
Wow.
And
that's what they wow.
And that's what they use. That's what they use to celebrate Thierry Henry at Barcelona.
I love it.
But so Big Girl You're Beautiful, which so what is it about this song then? Is it just
I mean, I think the whole premise of this song is it's just fun. Like, and I always vow, even now, that for me, pop music has to be fun. Like, that's the thing I listen to pop music for, is to smile and feel good. And I challenge anyone to go play this song and not smile during or afterwards. And because it's so joyous and it's just funny. I don't know. Like, it's just the lyrics. I always question sometimes whether if you're allowed to like the lyrics. I don't know. I don't know where it sounds like body shaming or not. I don't think it is. I think you're celebrating body, really. But like I say, it's just got lots of good memories, and I think that's so important with pop music as well. You've got those good times that they fit with me, and that bass at the start, the boom, 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 and then it's just all start building. I think this song builds really nicely. You've got that mixture of sort of like the more gritty vocal at the start, and then it hits that sort of more falsetto-y bits. I don't know, it's got really nice contrasts. I think it's just a really cracking song, and it brings joy at the same time. So it's a winner for me.
Yeah, it's one I completely forgot existed until I listened to this. I was like, oh, actually, I remember, and suddenly I just remembered it being a single. A single. But I think, but then I think whenever I try to remember this song, it kind of gets faded into another song that I'll bring up a bit later on. Which I forgot. There's another song which I'd completely forgotten existed, but then realised that it's been embedded in my brain for like 15 years. But interestingly as well, because I think a lot of people are saying that, and this is based off an interview he's made, because people are saying that, oh, you've just tried to do an updated reboot of Fat Bottom Girls by Queen, which which you can see on the first again because like he had a lot of Freddie Mercury
comparisons,
things.
didn't he?
Yeah, I mean Grace Kelly is actually him specifically trying that because the whole Freddie thing, which for years I thought meant Freddie Astaire because of the Grace Kelly thing, but yeah, so. This is the quote that he's made about the genesis of this song. I was flying to Los Angeles the next day, and I could never sleep because I hate flying so much. So I was watching trashy television. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and a Victoria Wood documentary on Channel 4. It was about fat people in the US, and she visited a club called the Butterfly Lounge, which was the first place of its kind, a club for larger women to hang out. Skinny women were not allowed in. The women were amazing, and I absolutely felt as if I had to write about them. I muted to television and wrote it right away. I never expected it on the album, but a few weeks later we recorded it and it's now there. So it is one of my favourite tracks and bring to play live. Everyone sings along. So yeah, so it's just basically like seeing like a body positive club in the US, and that's what the genesis of it was. So
love that.
What other songs do you want to highlight?
I mean, like I said, I think there's so many happy pop songs on here, but another one that really stands out, and it's another one that's got lots of good memories for me, is Happy Ending. I think that is a really good ballad, and I think if you listen to this album, like I said throughout, it's fun, and I think Mika gets labelled with that almost sort of like comedy pop writing, you know, taking the mick out of life, you know, all that sort of stuff. Whereas Happy Ending is really emotional, and it's placed right at the end of the album, which I mean, you've got that one bonus track afterwards, but it's right up there at the end, and it really changes the tone of this album towards the end. But again, the way that it's got layers, you've got different vocals coming on at the same time. Me and my best friend Todd, we both sort of were driving back home once, and this song came on a shuffle. I think it was just chuck on at Spotify, play liked songs. This one came on, and we both discovered how much we loved it. And I think we started to play it cool at the start, and then by the end, we're both hitting those really long notes, you know, layering the vocals, like just having the best time. And
I've got that in my head now. Yeah, just like people just like being cool, like going,
Yeah, and then they turn over to us, and we're going, feel as if I'm wasted, hitting all of those. And I think it's a really beautiful song, and I think it probably doesn't get the credit it deserves for being that emotional. You know, it's a heartbreaking song, really, if you dive into the lyrics.
But yeah, I think there's particularly the storytelling aspects of this bit. I think is quite interesting, and again, I think I have the memory of a friend of mine who'd broken up with a long-term partner of theirs, and but they were still on good terms. They was like on good terms with them, so they're still on kind of good terms with them, and and I think one of their, and I remember the we live the rest of our lives but not together thing was like either on a MySpace page or something, but that those lines kind of stayed with me and stuff, and it was one of those other ones. I'm like, I know those lines from somewhere, and suddenly, like early 20s, like almost like PTSD, kind of like, oh my god, like MySpace PTSD, but it's not PTSD, it's happy memories. I'm not talking about, but like I just those lyrics like, oh yeah, that's where those lyrics are from and stuff. Yeah, but it's kind of like a very particularly it had from earlier songs where it's kind of like joyful, kind of almost annoyingly catchy pop.
It feels like that annoyingly happy person at the start, the one that's just too happy. They come in at come into the office first thing in the morning, like, oh, please stop. Whereas this is a real turn.
Yeah, so like it's so this is basically he started with Grace Kelly, and then and then by the time he got to the end of the album, he's realised that he's creating a monster and that Grace Kelly's everywhere. And he's sick. He's basically like me. He's like basically like me, and he like got sick of it and like wrote a song. So I wonder if this song's actually about his relationship with the song Grace Kelly.
That would be brilliant. A brilliant full circle.
Actually, but it's probably not. It's probably not. I think he, from what I gather, he's still quite fond of that song. It's basically funded his career, I think.
100%.
Yeah, but no, it's a great kind of storytelling song, and it kind of almost bittersweet, and there's a maturity. Like again, it's a maturity. And this was released as a single. I think possibly to perhaps highlight that. Okay, you've got the first 3 singles, which was Grace Kelly, Love Today, and this one. To say no, it's not just. He's not.
Yeah, it's not just sunshine pop. I can do other things.
Yeah, he's capable of doing other stuff and stuff, and I think it is actually quite a nice, beautiful song.
Yeah, I think his vocal range is really highlighted on the song. I know it's not questioned throughout the album how wide his range is, but I think this one really highlights it because you've got so many different parts, and he's harmonizing with himself throughout it, and you've got the female vocal on here as well, which I think really matches his voice nicely. But that long note, it really hits you, I think.
We briefly mentioned about his vocal range. There's actually a kind of from 2017. There's a bit where he performs Grace Kelly with like an orchestra behind him, and it's a bit more of a swing style to it. But he still hits the high note, and he's hitting the high notes. And this is like about 12, 13 years after, and he's still got the ability to that. So he's still got that like range of his voice and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's quite to good effect to happy ending. So So any other songs you want to mention?
I mean, the other ones that I found before I listened to this, they sort of merged into one a little bit for me, were Lollipop, Love Today, and Relax. I don't know what happened when I sort of those 5 or 10 years where I didn't really listen to it as much. They all sort of merged into one song in my head. I thought, I've got a bit of this one, a bit of this one, a bit of this one. But now that I've taken the chance to sort of re-listen again, I really enjoy Love Today. I think that's just a real ultimate, like, I've had a good day, so let's just write about it. And I've seen interviews with him afterwards where he said, I had a good day, and it was one of those things where you expect everyone to have a good day if you're having a good day. So I wrote about it. And then afterwards you think, actually, that's not how life works. But that sort of positive anthem, I really enjoy that one. I really like the instrumentation on that song as well. Yeah,
Love Today, I think, is one of those songs I've forgotten was a Mika song. But then, like, again, it's one of those that I've forgotten. I completely forgot about it. But then as soon as that bass line hit, I was like, oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah. It's like that.
But that bass line is so disgustingly similar to Big Girl as well. You listen to it, you're like, this is the same bass line, but somehow it works. It still works.
I've got a theory, like there's like just let the bass guy just mess around in the recording studio, and then recorded both songs, and then forgot to tell the bassist to change.
I think this about another one of my favourite albums is from the Vaccines. It's what would you expect from the Vaccines, and that album is another one that's got so many songs that if you got rid of the vocals and got rid of some of like the big instrumentation, they're the same song, but it still works so well. They've got that thing, right, we're just gonna do this 3 chords, all we need, bang, album.
But again, it's one of those. It's probably got the most annoyingly catchy chorus. I think this song's got the most annoyingly catchy chorus out of a lot of them.
I just love the way he's instructing you to have a good time. Like, I think that's great. I think people should be playing this in the office if there's miserable people around them. I think you should be playing it like good wake up song. You're gonna love today. You're gonna do it. I like it.
Yeah, but I think it's just again annoyingly catchy music. But you mentioned Lollipop as well. Lollipop was now there's that, which I'm pretty sure the last time I heard that was when it was a single and it was on Radio 1.
Yeah, I think so. For me, that was the same. And I remember when this came out, everyone was like, oh, hang on, he doesn't mean an actual lollipop here, does he? And we thought, oh, we're really cool. We know this. We're 10 or 11 or 12. We know that what he's really saying. And I think, again, I don't know if that was an element that I was like, oh, this is cool to like this song. I don't know. But it's another one that's just really upbeat. And it's that sort of like choral singing where you got that big group almost chanting it. I really like songs like that. I find Brick by Boring Brick by Paramore, that last bit where they're all doing the da-da-da-da-da, that's sort of where you got loads of people chanting things. I don't know what that does to me. Yeah, I don't know why that works with me, but it really hooks me in. And I think that on Lollipop at the start really gets me going.
Yeah, gang vocals is one of my boxes. That and a hand
clap for me. Those two things I'm just in.
It's gang vocals, violins, tag team vocals.
Yeah.
Like any tag team vocals, like either do the same or male female tag team vocals, and then I'm done. But it's the bit I remember what people say when because the playground chant.
Yeah,
I was like, crap, I remember this on the radio. And like that was like the one where I'm like, I've not heard this, and then suddenly it kind of all came flooding back, even more so than the other stuff. And I was like, how many songs of this have I heard before?
Yeah. I really also, about this song, I love that little orchestration at the end. like with you've got all of the brass going on, and I think that really it makes it even happier. And I don't know, it kind of links to me a bit like early Lily Allen, that sort of sound. I'm a really big fan of it.
Yeah, like All Right Still. Funny you say, talk about Lily Allen, because the song Any Other World.
Yeah.
So I was listening to that, and it reminded me, like, I know the melody of that. Why don't I know the melody of that? And it sounds very, very similar to the point that I thought it might have been the same to Who'd Have Known by Lily Allen, which
I've never thought of that actually.
From that. But then again, that's actually, because it's the da 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 da. Then again, though, the Lily Allen song has on the credits of that song, as they've said, that it contains the interpolation of shine. Is it shine? Not shine. Yeah, it is Shine. I was right. Yeah. So because Gary Barlow, basically, Barlow, Orange, Owen, Donald, all got songwriting credits on that Lily Allen song. So
I didn't know that. Any Other World is one of those tracks that I think doesn't let the album down as such, but it's one of the ones a bit more filler for me.
It's the mid album kind of like, okay, you're just taking a break, get ready for the next bit.
It's the one that right, I've got to go change the record over now.
Yes.
We're on to side B now.
But that's when you had the but after that song, that's when you have like Billy Brown and Big Girl You're Beautiful.
Yeah.
But and then like happy ending and stuff. But actually we just mentioned that song, Billy Brown. That's one of those kind of like third person songwriting.
Yes.
Third person point of view songs.
I really enjoy Billy Brown, and this was one that when I didn't remember this one until that lockdown when I started really listening to it again, and I've got it on record, which I have handily here, and this is the first one on side 2, and I think it really works as that opening to the new side, because you just have that little piano to start, and this one I think is the one that makes me feel very musical theatre. You just got the little piano going, just playing those chords, ringing through, and you've got, like you say, that third person storytelling, and I really like it.
When you mention the musical theatre aspect, like potential of this, I was there immediately. I said, well, you got the main character, the Jesus of Suburbia character. He's like Billy Brown will probably end up being like the main character.
That's the name of the show, I think. Billy Brown.
Yeah, Billy Brown. Yeah, but that's kind of like the kind of like upbeat pop song, but about someone who's confused about sexuality. And again, this was 2007.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's quite a big thing to be mentioning on an album in 2007. I don't think many people were doing this quite so openly. People were definitely writing it into their lyrics, but this song is very much he fell in love with another man. Like that's what it says, So I think it was quite an interesting inclusion, but I think it's very Mika as well.
But and again, the Genius annotations are quite interesting on this. On some religion that he said he'd newly found, they didn't know that his faith was earthly bound. And the Genius annotation was going, this is a clever lyric. Billy is telling his 2 kids, his cautionary wife, and perhaps his dog that his dodgy holiday is a result of him being dedicated to a new religion. What's a lie? Of course his family believed him. What they didn't know was that this new faith in which Billy had acquired isn't mystical or spiritual at all. It's just him meeting a gay lover right here on this very planet. Probably somewhere in Surrey or Devonshire or London. Genius annotations never change.
I love it.
But Genius. I love Genius. It's unintentionally hilarious. But so there's that kind of weird, like, I don't know. There's that kind of like positivity or like kind of talking about all sorts of things, and like as well as just like relationship stuff, but also like storytelling and body positivity and like sexuality stuff again, which is what I think kind of like reminded me of a lot more of this current generation of singer-songwriters that embrace all these kind of new topics and stuff. And
I think like if you listen to pop albums, so often every song is either a love song or a breakup song, whereas this album really isn't that, and I think that's another reason I like it so much. It's just randomness just chucked in. It just feels like even the album art, it just feels like anything that's in his head has just gone blah and onto an album, and this is what I've made. Do you know what I mean? And I love that. I think that's I like it so much because it kind of relates to my own brain. I think there's just a lot going on, and he's just chucked it all onto this album and made an absolute hit. So I think that's another reason I like it so much.
And you know what? This is going to shock people. Because you brought up the album art, I'm going to remember to talk about the album art, because I've never remembered to talk about the album art.
I love an album art. I think they get lost sometimes. I think it either make or break an album sometimes.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the 10th time I'll actually explicitly mention the album art. But so the album art in question, and I'm not sure who designed it. I'm just going to quickly try and find that out. I can't find it. But it's basically kind of like, it incorporates a very colourful motif, and the idea of life in cartoon motion. It feels like kind of cartoony, colourful stuff, and I think it's kind of like a style that moves across to a couple of his other albums.
Definitely.
The kind of colourful, kind of same art type thing. But yeah, there's elements of different songs in there. You've got what I think is like a cartoon representation of the girl he sings to in the Grace Kelly video.
Yeah, you've got the girl in the lollipop song as well. You know, it's got a bit of everything, haven't you? And I just think it's so nice, and I really like the sort of. You've got, like I say, it's pure cartoon, but then you've got a really arty picture of Mika just snuck in the left corner. I
wonder if that's just so that people realise that it's his album, even though the word Mika's massive.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't escape the fact it's by Mika, can you?
No. I do find it quite... Yeah, I mean, that inclusion of him in that little tiny bit, it does stand out a bit, and it does. I don't know if it's in a good way. I think he kind of takes out the kind of colour stuff, because it's very sepia, and it's kind of like different to all the.
I love it. I think it's such a cool album art, and I don't know. I feel like Netflix original series, when they have their introduction sort of credits or whatever, and they have all of the little bits that they drop in, there's some shoes that link to one random episode. Like you say, they've got little bits of every single song that they've just mentioned in there. So you've got Big Girls. Obviously, now that I know that you said about the Butterfly Lounge being a club, I can really see it from that image. And you've got Billy Brown, I imagine, sat on his sort of little sofa. And, I think there's just loads of little bits going on, which I think are really cool.
Yeah, that's really quite nice and stuff. And that's and what I'm going to do, I think any long-term listeners listen to this, I think they would have just woken up from their shock, that they've probably fainted in shock, and then just realised that they just completely missed all the talk on the album art. So celebrate me remembering to talk about the album art for once. So the reception. So there's a bunch of press quotes from the album on the website, which I'm gonna. So it was 5 out of 5 on the Independent on Sunday, where it's capitulate and admit to its greatness, Magnifica. Life in cartoon motion is exuberant, accomplished, crazy, sexy, cool from the Observer. A certain smash from Music Week. The Big Issue said it's charming and brilliant. Mika's the new saver of pop from The Sun. Mojo said it was the new chart sensation of 2007. Blah 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 blah. However, that again coming from reception, that's from his website, so it's all PR based. What's interesting is that the critical reaction to this was very, very mixed.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah. Alexis Petridis at The Guardian gave it 1 out of 5. Okay, 1 out of 5. But going to one of my favourite kind of things to look at on this podcast, Pitchfork. Have you read the Pitchfork reviews?
I have read many. I have not reid this one. No, I've read many Pitchfork reviews, and they can be brutal. So I'm interested to see what they say.
So I don't know if you did you listen to the Taylor Swift Reputation?
Yes.
Episode. Yeah. So yes. Me and Leah was saying oh my god, Pitchfork hated Reputation. They gave it 6.9 or something, 6.5, and that's Pitchfork hates this. Life in Cartoon Motion on Pitchfork's got a 1.5 on Pitchfork. A 1.
Dear.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad.
And okay, yeah. I'm not going to read it out, but and I mean, Pitchfork's reviews are always entertaining in their own way.
Yes.
Yeah. The grab quote at the top is, "This chart-topping UK pop debut seems to be the smug product of Broadway auditions, karaoke sessions, and Robbie Williams."
I feel like Pitchfork they're too cool to like Mika though, and I think that's
Yeah.
my big worry, and that's why I've always said like it's not okay to like this album. But I've got to an age now where I'm just like, sod it. I'm gonna enjoy it for what it is. I don't need to be too cool.
But yeah, I need some of the stuff on this though. It's I find it entertaining. Entertaining. I mean, Pitchfork isn't the quietest. I mean, I don't think the quietest would even know what Mika is. They probably think it's an IKEA make of
a bookshelf or something.
Yeah. That's the quietest going. Mika, isn't that the bookshelf? So the implication. So basically, talks about Grace Kelly, features a young girl in gauzy yellow dress atop a piano, made in the words of a certain captivating Hollywood princess. The implication, although nothing on this album is much implied as flamboyantly held, is that this pint-sized Grace is a cute standing for a heartbreaker of his own age. The whole album reeks of wide-eyed youth. Mika appearing not as much as an inquisitive elder as a peer, comfortable amongst his backup vocalists, voice givers, and child actors. He's cushy saying that Mika wastes classical training to borrow respectful in brackets Freddie Mercury and cheap Robbie Williams pop tricks that deprecate exponentially in his hands. Yeah, and
they didn't have a good day that day, did they?
No. I'll probably move on, but it's a very entertaining read anyway. So yeah, the next paragraph begins with, "There is virtually zero worth to this album."
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh dear.
A combination of zealous experiments with garage band and would-be music and lyrics soundtrack cuts. Oh, now, okay, "Pop Goes My Heart" from music and lyrics is a banger. That song is a pop banger. But there's a very kind of, it's very critically polarizing.
I think it depends what you want from an album, isn't it? Like, if you want an album that flows beautifully from track to track, that really means something, that it's going to move you, this is not the album for you. If you want something that you can put on and have fun and feel good to, which I do from a pop record, this is 100% the album for you. You know, I think that's why it's so split.
For example, earlier this evening when I was doing kind of my last minute revision, I took this on whilst I was just basically cooking pasta and stuff, and like you can't help but kind of like, again, the bass lines, you can't help but kind of like dance around the kitchen.
Oh yeah. You're doing the shuffle, you're swaying besides that all of that stuff. You can't not move to it, and I think that's why I love it. Like, if ever I have a drive and I feel like a bit rubbish after work, this album is a go-to, and you end up belting out "Love Today" as loud as you can. Like you say, that scratchy vocal that you're not hitting any of the notes, but my God, you're having fun trying. That's what I love about it.
I can't think of what's a good term for that. I mean, like a good like uplifting beat.
It's a guilty pleasure, maybe. You know, maybe it's a guilty pleasure. You're not allowed to like it, but it's too good not to.
I'm gradually not believing in the
I don't like label. The term guilty pleasure at all, but I feel a lot of people follow it still. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's one of those kind of upbeat, kind of mood enhancing albums. I think that, particularly
if serotonin boost of an album.
A serotonin boost, yeah. It's audio chocolate. That's it. It's audio chocolate. Audio chocolate. Yeah,
that's great. I like that. I'm going to be using that going forward.
That's one to go. That's one to go into the lexicon. That's up there with your money and bling. Your money and your bling and your rolls and your Latham limits. That's going in the liquid audio chocolate.
Audio chocolate.
Have you ever seen Mika live?
No, and I've got a couple of stories about how I was close to but didn't, and it makes me sad. So the first time, it was probably it was before lockdown, actually. A few people I worked with, we all sort of ended up speaking about Mika, and we had a bit of a love-in about him, and we saw he was touring. And he was doing a couple of nights in London, and we were like, oh my gosh, we've got to go. We've got to do this. This is my first year back after uni. I'm back living with my parents. I've got absolutely no money. So I'm like, but I want to do this. So we looked at tickets. Matt, how much would you think a ticket to go watch Mika live? Considering he's not done a lot since this album, how much would you say ballpark for this ticket?
Right, okay. I'm not gonna go into a massive rant on ticket prices, but because I have opinions, which
Oh yeah.
which go against the kind of positive vibe I want on the podcast. So in Mika, was it just a general tour? Was he touring?
Yeah,
the
just
album?
a general tour. I think it was his new album. Yeah, he'd just done. I can't remember what the album is called right now, but this was about 2018, that sort of year.
2018. What venue was he playing?
Somewhere in London. I can't remember which. I think it was one of the bigger ones in London.
Because that would
London Palladium, maybe.
How big's that? That's not a arena.
It wasn't like a huge. It wasn't an arena. It was like your big sort of like Brixton Academy, that sort of size. It wasn't massive.
Right. Okay.
It was 2019. He was touring My Name is Michael Holbrook.
Around the 50 quid mark.
It was £85. And I was there like, oh my gosh, I can't spend £85 to
85
watch
quid.
Mika.
I think
know.
Anything above 30 is kind of like
100%.
Yeah.
I think unless they're a band that I adore, I will not spend more than 40.
Yeah.
I think is where I start to go. Meh. That was the first time that I nearly saw Mika, and then the same thing happened. So I'd booked to go to a festival, and I can't remember what festival it was, and I saw Mika was on there, and I was like, oh, I've not actually seen Mika be on any lineup for any festival that I've ever really been interested in. And then bloody COVID happened, so again I didn't see him, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm sort of in this weird place where I feel like I'm destined to never see him live, but he's on my list of people I'd love to see, and I'm hoping he's going to do some sort of, I don't know, maybe like 20 years since he released it, or some special tour of just this album, because realistically he's not done very much since. I mean, if you look through, he's done quite a few albums, but none of them have really got anywhere near this. So I'd love to go and see it be toured. I think it'll be absolutely amazing. And I think, like we said throughout, this is such a showman album, so I'd love to see what he does with it live. I think it'll be absolutely incredible.
No, yeah, I completely agree with that. Because again, but I probably wouldn't go and actually see him. If he was on a festival line, I'll probably go, oh, okay,
yeah,
probably see that. But yeah, so it's a shame. Hopefully you see him one day.
I would love to. I mean, he's doing a lot more like opera stuff now, which I've seen. So he did like an opera album most recently, and he's done some other bits and bobs. So I think if he's going down that route, I might give it a miss. But if he's going towards his more early stuff, then maybe I'll go back.
Yeah, unless because I think because the video I saw, I think it was from 2017, which had the him performing Grace Kelly with the orchestra.
Yeah.
It probably could end up being something like that, where you've seen like singing reimagining.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all for that. I think as long as it's something to do with that first album, I'd be all over it.
So people have listened to Mika the first time and don't want to listen to other albums by him, where would you recommend they go next?
For other albums from Mika, I think that My Name is Michael Holbrook album, which was 2019, so there's 12 years gap between it. That one is pretty good. It's got Ice Cream, which I really enjoyed. That's just another camp pop song, which has got so many sexual connotations that are very badly done through metaphor, which I think is what Mika does well. That's where I would go next if you're looking for more Mika goodness. But like I said, I don't think he really ever hit the heights after this. I think if you're going to go anywhere, you've got to stick with Life in Cartoon Motion, personally.
Oh, okay. But so potentially go to other ones, but if you just stick with this one, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. I think that's like I think anyone that hasn't had, I think that's pretty much the first time people said, yeah, stick with this one. That's probably the first time anyone said that.
That's what I mean. There were so many albums when you said about coming on that I was like, oh, there's so many bands that I absolutely adore every single album on. But this one is just like, it's a one-hit wonder album for me. And I don't know, but it just really sticks. He had a couple of other songs. He did Popular Song, which was quite popular in the charts. That was 2012.
Happening.
Yeah. And he did a song with, who was it with? It was that song. So Popular Song features a very young Ariana Grande, and that 2012 Ariana Grande's on it, and that's a really joyous, happy little duet. So that might be a good track to visit. But apart from that, I wouldn't really bother. I would go elsewhere for some more happy pop.
Okay. No, it's fair enough. And, okay, so we're here with the most important part of the podcast now, which is the song for the playlist.
Oh, this is a bit I've been worrying about, Matt. It's a bit I've been worrying about.
So for anyone who's not listened to this before, what this is that I'm going to ask Matt to choose one song from this album to be immortalised forever in the Spotify Hall of Fame playlist that I have. And it's going to be just to, if you're trying to figure out any like, if you want any help to sway, I'll give you the previous last two at the time of recording from episodes that haven't aired yet. So basically, this is going to be following "I Still Destroy You" by The National and "Hunting by and Low" by Aha.
Okay, that's quite a mix, isn't it?
And before then, it's "Otherworld" from the Final Fantasy X soundtrack.
Wow. So. Okay, it's an eclectic playlist then.
And Scatman John before that as well.
I mean, as I said to you before, this part, I'm quite nervous about this part. Obviously, my podcast is all about playlisting. We choose songs to put on playlists every week. So you think I'd be quite good at this by now. I'm terrified. The fact I've only got one choice. For me, I think the easy choice would be Grace Kelly, but I don't want to take the easy choice. I think
take the one that you
want. And the song that I want to put on here is gonna be "Big Girl, You Are Beautiful," because that is just the most joyous one on the album. I think it's got all the elements of Mika that I love. The vocal is great, the bass line is great, and as I said, for me, pop music is about being happy, and this song is just pure joy. So I'm chucking that one on for you.
Okay, so as I said earlier, the Big Girl, You Are Beautiful joins the playlist following Aha and The National. So that's going to be...
Yeah, it's a weird little mix there, isn't it?
Yeah, and I need to sit down and listen to that in sequence. I've not listened to that playlist in sequence for a long while. I need to go and give that a go because it's heading to some interesting places.
It really is.
Yeah, and with that, we've now reached the end of our conversation, Matt.
We have.
And
it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved that. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, it's perfectly fine. It's glad to come on. And again, thank you for letting me to come on to SP10. Speaking of which, if people want to find you and SP10 and let them know what it's about, feel free. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So I am Matt from the SP10 podcast. Me and my good friend Max Gifford, we are just big music fans, and each week we create a 10-song playlist for subjects chosen by our listeners. So we've done things like the movie playlist, 80s playlist. You guys give us a theme, we try and condense that category into 10 perfect songs. We take audience suggestions and we just have a big old chat about music, and it's quite light-hearted, it's quite chilled out. We just love chatting music like you do as well, Matt. So that's what we do. We're very lucky to have you coming on our show as well. We've recorded with each other. That's coming out next week, so that's exciting as well. And you can find us on any streaming platforms, really, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts from, we're probably on there somewhere. Or you can find us on our social media, and that's at SP10 Pod. So that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, if you still use that, TikTok, all of those places, we are there. So come and find us and listen to some nice, light-hearted chat about different music.
Yeah, it's like I quite like I think I said earlier, I quite like that there's quite a lot of crossover in terms of taste, particularly like our music tastes are quite similar.
Yeah.
Though you've got the kind of like the early stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff that you've mentioned that I've always never meant to. I was kind of like I was onto other genres at that point.
Yeah.
So like when you talked about some stuff, and then I think on the flip side as well, like when I noticed you'd started listening to a couple of things that I referenced. Like you said, you never listened to Blood Red Shoes before.
And I gave them a listen. Now I can't stop. So on our socials as well, we're doing all sorts of album reviews, things like that. So if you're just interested in any sort of music, we're trying to create like a music platform, really. So whether it's song reviews or looking at new Music Friday, all that sort of stuff, we're probably over it in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I completely admire your social media game, which is great. The amount of effort that you put in for the reviews.
It's good fun. I just love listening to new music, and it's really nice as well being part of like the podcast network, because you see what everyone else is listening to. Like you say, I'd not listened to Blood Red Shoes before you. just put it on yours, and I was like, oh, I'm going to give that a listen. And then I've loved that album, and like things like that are why we do it. And I really enjoy it. So, yeah.
But yeah, if you've not listened to that first album,
you said I'm still, that's on my list of to-dos.
It's not top tier, it's middle tier, but basically by middle tier, I've got a canvas on my living room wall with like album art like on there, and Box of Secrets is on that. Please do give SP10 a listen, and you'll be hearing me guessing on that, but don't hold that against them at all.
It's a good episode. I'm looking forward to people hearing it.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun, and basically almost gave me an existential crisis.
That's the one stress with it, is trying to condense. We said we've had a few people on recently, and we've realised how broad some of these are. So like we've done, you know, the 80s as a playlist, trying to choose 10 songs that summarise the 1980s. That's impossible, but we still try, you know. But yeah, it's all good fun. We love it.
Yeah. You should narrow it down to something that's easy to do, like 80s new wave or something. Yeah.
I feel like the further we go in with other episodes, they're going to get more and more niche, aren't they? But yeah, we started big.
To be fair, you probably have better chance with the 80s as a whole rather than new wave in the 80s. But I can't recommend SP10 enough. Do give it a listen, and give the episode I'm on a few listens as well, just to boost the stats up.
Cheers, guys.
But not as much as Pick This though.
We're behind you in our good pods charts and stuff. Don't worry about it.
I do want them to check out that, but I want my listeners to remember who they're loyal to. But no, in all serious, it's been such fun to talk to you about Mika, and basically introduce me to an album that I didn't realise I knew half of already.
I'm glad, and thank you very much. As I say, it's a joy to speak to someone who will bother to listen to me for an hour rant on about how much I love him. So yeah, that's great. Thank you.
You've been listening to Pick a Disc, and I've been your host, Matthew Latham. Our theme music is Pump by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Pick a Disc is hosted by the We Made This podcast network, and you can find them on www.spreaker.com/user/WeMadeThis. You can find the Pick a Disc show site on www.spreaker.com/show/pickadisc. You can find us on all the usual social media type places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under Pick a Disc. You can also email us on pickadisc@gmail.com. Until next time, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you just listened to, or maybe you're just about to listen to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling. Now, back to your scheduled programming. Elsewhere on We Made This. The Failed Critics Podcast.
This Leatherface isn't a young guy anymore. He's a big guy. He's an older guy. Like, just sprint a little bit up the road and shoot him. Like, he's got a big chainsaw as well, that if he's swinging it around, he's got to be careful with it or he's going to hurt himself. He's not going to be quick. Literally, some of them have got guns at some point in this film. Just sprint 20 yards up the road and shoot him.
There's a number of plot holes in this where the Hardesty character has the opportunity to point blank him and just doesn't do it. And it's just like, you've gone all this way, you've waited 50 years to see him again, and you could literally just blow his head off.
Yeah.
He's not posing any threat to you whatsoever. In fact, he's sat on his bed waiting for you to do something.
And then you have a little chat with him. So just blow him away.
free with this month's issue.
Quite often, things that go fast is good.
But that's not, because it doesn't go really fast.
Yeah, just goes faster.
Yeah, and also when you've been ominously stalking, which is what that bassline does, it's ominous, then going fast is not. You know, like Jason Voorhees doesn't run, does he? No.
He doesn't need to.
He remains
just
ominous
appears.
the whole time.
Yeah, but
That's what this song should have done.
he's not Jason Voorhees. He's the T-1000's brother.
And did the T-1000 run? Not really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a bit, but not a
That bit
lot.
when he's fucking chasing after them in the car, he's definitely running.
Maybe
quite
that's
famously.
why he did it. You know what?
Geek Polymath.
I don't think I'm a geek because I'm gay, but I think it fucking helped.
Well, listen, so I have theories about this.
Good.
Strap in for a conspiracy session.
Please.
It's all to do with being an outsider, which, of course, as fingers crossed, as society progresses and advances, we will hopefully get to the stage where just sexuality will have nothing to do with you being an insider or an outsider, but it's massively a part of it. There's a reason Russell T Davies felt such a strong connection to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And I think those kind of outsider bubbles overlap.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.